Hello there. Welcome to or welcome back to my channel, Snips by Kelly. I'm Kelly, and today I have a fun scrapbook layout for you with a cute collection, but my focus really is photo solutions. I have a series of photos here that are over 10 years old. There are no digital copies, and I love the memories in these photos, but I'm not a fan of the photos. They're dark, they're dingy, they're out of focus, they're cropped really weird, and they've been sitting in a box for 10 years. So these are photos of my granddaughter Avery Jean and I at a children's museum where they had fun miniatures. Miniature grocery store, miniature farm, miniature veterinarian shop, miniature mechanic shop, and she had just the absolute blast. She's so intent on having fun that she doesn't even look at me in most of the photos. But she had so much fun on the farm, picking corn, picking pumpkins, picking potatoes, picking flowers. It was so much fun. And I can't decide between the grocery store photos and the farm photos, but I knew right away that the to market collection was going to be perfect. We have farm fresh flowers and vegetables and mini flowers, larger flowers, all these different vegetables that can actually be cut out of the pattern paper. Natural colors, really muted natural colors. So I figured if I used the grocery store, I could use the attention shoppers, and if I did the farm, I could use the market goodness, both of which would go really, really great with the to market collection. Now there's a lot of busy patterns in here, although they're not brights, they're more neutrals, they're more muted, they're still very busy patterns. So I know that I'm going to use two 12 by 12 backgrounds, and I'm going to want to have some white space or something to break up the patterns. If not white space, I'm going to want to break it up with some solid cardstock. But looking at the photos, you can see how dull and dingy they are. I have no digital copy, so definitely I could use my auto adjust if I had a digital copy. I could actually do some warm tones, some light tones, and I could adjust my photos, but I don't have a digital copy. So don't think I'm crazy. I'm trying this for the first time, but I'm actually going to take a photo of a photo. So what I did is I actually put the photos on the wall, stuck them on the wall with a light background, took a photo of the photo, then I used the auto adjust, and you can actually even adjust it to darker and lighter, and you can play around with those settings on your phone. Now, it's not a miracle or anything, but there is a definite difference. You can see a difference in those photos. Now, I'm sure photo people would probably be gasping and saying that I'm destroying pixels or I'm, it's probably not the right thing to do. But honestly, I have no other copies of these photos. I have no digital copies. I have no choices other than to use them as dull photos and use them as is or give this a try. So I go through all the photos. I take photos of all the photos. I adjust them all with the auto adjust. I adjust the warmth, and I slide my dial back and forth on my phone, and I come up with a series of photos that I can live with, that I can actually feel like I can now print those on a glossy paper instead of the matte, and really actually get better use out of them and get these really important photos scrapped. They've been literally sitting in a box for 10 years. I've been avoiding them because every time I get them out, I'm like, I just can't reconcile with them because the photos themselves aren't so great. So what I decided to do is do 3 by 3 squares of the to market collection, but I don't want to just do a plain old square grid in the background. I do want a grid style because I want all of these patterns to show. I think the little mini florals, the little cute little tomato pattern, all of these patterns I think would make a wonderful background if they're broken up a little bit by a contrast, like maybe just by white in the background. But I'm going to take my corner rounder and I'm going to round a few corners and see if I can match up some edges and just make a little bit more of a more unique background instead of a basic grid. I also like the idea of breaking the grid apart and putting some focal elements in the middle of the grid, or even perhaps some journaling in the middle of the grid, so it no longer really looks like a traditional grid style. So I'm just randomly cutting 1 or 2 corners on these patterns, and then I'm going to match those up in the middle. Now I don't have to have a 3x3 square in the middle because the middle is going to be covered up. I actually do I do reverse the patterns. So I'm going to put the whole grid on the right and then a partial grid on the left. And then we can have a focal photo. I think the photo of Avery Jean picking corn, I think will be great. So I think I'm going to be happy with just kind of a different play. It's very, very subtle. But then when you look at the layout background, it doesn't feel so much like a grid, even though it truly is. But just by rounding a few of those corners with a corner rounder, it gives it a little bit different twist. So over here, I think I can put 2 rows on one side, 1 row on the other, and I'm even contemplating having some of those on the right side actually hang off. And then maybe what I can do is match up the patterns when you bring the 2 pages together. I'm not there yet, but that's what I'm thinking. And so this corner rounder is an old, close to my heart corner rounder that I've had for years and years and years. There's many different corner rounders out there, and it's something that it seems like we went through these periods of what was in style, and there was a period of time where everything was rounded. All of your photo corners were rounded, all of your papers were rounded, and we use the corner rounder on every single layout. And then you go through periods where trends wax and wane, and I didn't really use it for a long time. And now I just use it here and there, and it's still such a very useful tool that I will never, ever, ever get rid of. I have to admit, I did not look to see if Stampin' Up! Has one, but I'm 99.9% sure that they do. So now I'm just kind of playing with the patterns here, and I'm thinking I'll switch these around, have a focal photo on the left, some journaling on the left, and then have more photos on the right. So I'm going to go with a 4x6 vertical photo and 4 3x4 vertical photos is what I'm going to land on. But I'm going to come 1.5 inches in with these 3-inch squares. And then I think it's 1.5 inches down. Let me double check that. I can't really see here. I'm going to double check that for you right here. Let's see. Yep, it looks like we're 1.5 inches down from the top, and we are actually 1.25 inches in from the left-hand side on the left page. I think the right page is going to be a little farther in. I think it's actually going to be 1.5 inches in, and I'm just using my ruler. This is actually my T ruler. I think it's my T ruler or my extra long ruler. I love those to be able to have those go all the way across to just get my my first anchor photo or my anchor piece paper. So that I can keep things straight all the way down. So I'm putting about 1/4 inch in between each of the squares. Now I've done my journaling on white cardstock. So I did my journaling and I kept it skinny and just kind of kept typing and returning. And then I printed it on cardstock and trimmed out a 3-inch piece. So I have 3 inches of journaling, and I went up about 6 inches, I would say, so that I have a little spot up above for some focal decorative elements. And then I'm actually going to put my right side squares off of the paper, and then I'm going to trim those off. I'll be able to use those for something else a little bit later. And I really like this concept of grid style, breaking apart your patterns, especially the busy patterns, breaking apart your patterns, and the grid style shows off all the patterns. You get to see all of the fun elements that are going to go with these photos. And then I'm just rearranging my squares on the right so that the ending squares on the left page match up with the beginning squares on the right page, and your eye just rolls all the way across the page that way. And then I'm going to make my regular grid over here on the right with spaces in between. And we'll have a little bit of a different element with those rounded corners. And I'm kind of just putting some flat edges with some rounded edges, and then some rounded edges with some flat edges to give it a little bit of a twist. I think it's so subtle that you don't even really know what your eye is telling you. It's just a little bit more pleasing than a plain old ordinary grid. I'm loving those patterns. I'm just kind of trying to balance. There's some Blackberry Bliss patterns, which Blackberry Bliss is one of my all-time favorites. So I think I do want to do some photo matting. And there is a wood grain in the To Market collection that I think is going to tie it all together, bring it down to those earth tones that are going to fit with the mini garden scenes. And so I think I will probably back all of my photos with an 1/8 inch white. So what I did then is I have a 3 1/8 by 4 1/8 background for each of the 3 by 4 verticals, a 4 1/8 by 6 1/8 white background for the 4 by 6 photos, and then I went a little larger so a little bit of that wood grain would show. So on the large photo on the left, it's 4 1/2 by 6 1/2 of the wood grain, and then on the right, I believe it is 6 1/2 by 8 1/2. I may have had to trim that just a little bit. But, or is it 6 1/4? Let me get a measure. It's just about 6 1/2 by 8 1/2. Now, I think we can get all kinds of fun elements. This is such a fun collection with the To Market papers and the Market Goodness. So the Market Goodness has a stamp set and a die set that can be sold separately, but they can also coordinate together. And so you can do the bundle, or if you get the To Market suite, the bundle, the stamp and the die is included in that bundle. So you have all of these different dies that coordinate with the pattern paper. So you can actually use your dies to cut out the carrots, the lettuce, the tomatoes, I believe the radish, the onion. Perfect, absolutely perfect, and makes such colorful vegetables. Now you have the option to just die cut those out and stamp those as well. If you don't want to use up all of your pattern paper by cutting out of the pattern paper, you can do that. Now, often I will see a die set and I'm like, I don't really know what you're supposed to do with this, or I'm not really sure what this is for, and I really need a frame of reference. So I will go to the Stampin' Up! Site to that collection, and I will collect ideas from photos that they have in that collection. So if you go to the To Market collection on the Stampin' Up! Website, and I'm struggling with my fingers here, so you'll have to excuse me, but you can get to an idea section where they show you sample artwork. And I love looking at how they arranged the vegetables in the baskets, what some of the containers were used for, and how they used those. It gives me a jumping off point of saying, oh, that's what that's for. Like there's a little die in this set that is like a sprig of onions, and it has a little bow that goes around them. And when I saw the die standing alone, I was like, I have no idea what that is or what you put that on. And so by going to the Stampin' Up! Website and looking at some of their sample artwork, it really gives you a jumping off point. So I've actually just cut from the pattern paper all kinds of vegetables. I also cut all kinds of containers. I don't know if I'll use them all, but I use the die to make a mesh basket. And then I also cut out some bags and baskets from the pattern paper. Such a fun thing to do. I absolutely loved it. They also have some little flower stars that I think are going to work great as embellishments. That as you can see here, I'm using some circle dies that I have used that I feel like they're an investment set. I have 2 sets of these. They're called the Everyday Details dies. They have all of these circles and rectangles and fun shapes that have circles embedded around them. And I think they make amazing backgrounds. So I cut 2 of those in the Blackberry Bliss cardstock. One I'm going to use as a hole over on the right to just have a landing place for a basket of veggies. And the other one I cut in half, and I'm going to use it as a really pretty background filler in this little valley that I created with the journaling. I think I'm going to put the flowers in this basket. And I think if you pop up the little, it's not a basket, I think it's maybe a canvas bag, and I'm going to pop that up with foam tape, and then I'm just going to put the foam tape on the bottom of that so it allows me some ability to tuck things in and arrange things and just figure out the colors. So I feel like that more peachy color can be over the top of the Blackberry Bliss circles. And then I can put the red over to the left and then put the Blackberry Bliss flowers up toward the front to break that apart and to break those flowers apart. And I think that's going to look so cute, kind of offset a little more over to the left, not directly above the journaling, but offset that a little bit more to the left. I can see myself even putting a sprig of onions or something on the front of that bag. Now we have this great strip here. It's like a Blackberry Bliss diagonal stripe that's on the back of the bags, and I'm just going to tear a small little piece to make that look like a little piece of washi tape that's holding down the photo. I think for a title, I really love the idea of saying Little Farmer or Lil Farmer and apostrophe and making it look a little country. So I've pulled out the Stampin' Up! Mini Alpha dies. I've used these a ton. I only have 2 alpha dies from Stampin' Up! Because I think that's the only 2 that I've found so far since becoming a Stampin' Up! Demonstrator about 3.5 months ago, crossing over from close to my heart. But I like how little they are, that they allow me to make longer titles. And I think Lil Farmer will be super cute up there. So Avery Jean's parents, my daughter and my son-in-law, do have a farm. My daughter is a nurse, but they have a farm. And I was fascinated by how much she loved the miniature farm at the Children's Museum. And it was so cool. They had these huge stalks of corn that were like on poles, and they had Velcro, and you would go and pick the corn out of the pockets, and then you could put the corn back in the pockets. And then they had these little mounds that had holes in them, like little gopher holes. And they had inserted potatoes inside all the holes, carrots in the holes, flowers in the holes. So you literally did have to go get a wagon or a basket and go around the farm and pick these items out of the holes just like you were picking crops. Absolutely loved it. So now I have the Fussy Cut whiskey barrel and the Fussy Cut shopping bag, and I'm just playing with all of these fun vegetables. I'm popping some of them up with foam tape, tucking some of them in, tucking some of them under, trying to balance the colors so that we have some green, some red, some orange, and some Blackberry Bliss, and I am loving it. This is such a cute collection. You could use this collection for grocery shopping, for gardening, for touring, you know, if you're going to gardens, or if you have specific crops, for farming, for so many things. I really, really, really think it's so adorable how they made it so that you could either fussy cut or die cut these pieces out. And I love that you have the option to stamp them as well. I didn't do any of that stamping today because I just love the vivid bright colors in the pattern papers. And I felt like it was a lot less work. I could just cut out some of the pattern paper, and as long as you have plenty of that pattern paper to fussy cut pieces out of or die cut pieces out of, it's super, super cute. So I'm arranging my baskets. I actually did cut a mesh basket out of a couple colors. I cut to try. I cut one of those out of pecan pie, which is the little bit darker tan. And then I did a lighter one out of crumb cake. And I have the crumb cake one out now. Actually, once I get all of the vegetables into the mesh bag, I decide that I really like pecan pie better. It's a little darker and it shows up a little bit better. But I'm loving this. I'm having so much fun, and I'm so much happier with the modifications that I made to the photos. I know it's a little weird to take a photo of a photo, but it enabled me to be able to salvage some photos that have been sitting around for 10 years and really get use out of them and feel better about scrapping them. I always felt like I would scrap these even if they were poor quality because they were the only ones that I had, and they still captured the memory. I could still tell the story. So I don't want to compare my older photos that I still have to scrap with the amazing, vibrant quality of what we have now. Even in a decade, in 10 years' time, the technology has incredibly changed to so that when you go back to photos that you've taken years ago, it's tough. Like I have a lot of Polaroids still to scrap, and then I have photos that I literally did take with box cameras. We had box cameras at birthday parties because it was the in thing to do, to have a little box camera on every table, and the quality was awful. And it was a fun thing to do to have everyone at the event take all these photos, and then you would dump all these cameras, take all these cameras in that were in these box cameras in and have them all developed. But now, even the difference of, whether you're a person who likes a matte photo or a glossy photo, just the printing quality and the difference in the printing quality is incredible. And the opportunity to be able to adjust your photos on your phone is incredible. I think I went from just, regular Instamatic cameras and regular cameras to, I think I had a period of about, I don't know how many years of having an enormous Canon camera. And it did take amazing photos. You had to have a little bit more skill. You had to learn a little bit about how to take photos with that. And it was huge. We took it on every vacation, and it hung around my neck, and it had little lenses that I would change. And I absolutely loved it. But we have the evolution of actually being able to get just as good or better photos off of an Android or an iPhone. It's incredible to look at the transformation of photos over the years. I do end up being very happy and glad that I took photos of photos and that I auto adjusted those and I adjusted the temperature on those. I really feel happy with them now, and I feel like I was able to salvage these memories, and I feel good that I finally got memories from 10 years ago scrapped. This children's museum is about a half an hour from my daughter's place. And I have literally taken every grandchild to it since then. And I have a lot better photos of some of the more recent ones. But I also actually, like, history repeated itself. Because I'm running after them in the museum and I'm snapping photos, and I needed to slow down and make them stop and take some better photos. But I have some photos from even last year of a grandchild that's younger that I took that I'm kind of in the same situation. They're actually good quality in terms of the tone of the photos, but I'm not getting a lot of the focal face and that kind of thing. So it's kind of a good lesson, to slow down a little bit and really concentrate. You never know which ones you're going to scrap. So what I've done here now is I've stamped Bursting with Happiness on a piece of scrap white in Blackberry Bliss. I've done a little bit of ink rubbing in Blackberry Bliss. It is a darker color, so I made sure to rub off on scrap paper, and I ran my blending brush over the journaling, and then a little bit up in the left and a little bit down on the right, by Bursting with Happiness. And I just kind of like that it takes out a little bit of that stark white. I could do a ton of things around the background. I could do some splattering on the background. I could do some journal lines on the background, but I'm actually really happy with the white contrast. But just know that you could do all kinds of more things to this if you wanted to, but I feel like the absolute color in the veggie baskets, the flower baskets, in the mesh bag are wonderful. So the actual gems that come with this collection are called transparent adhesive back dots, and they have the greens and the blackberry and the clear. And so I'm using some of the little die flowers to decorate, and then some of the garden green gems. Garden green goes with this collection, and they're the darker green. I think the lighter green and the blackberry would work as well, but I have so many Blackberry Bliss accents in this that I really wanted the contrast in the garden green gems, and I am getting happy. I'm happy that I was able to go back 10 years and get some photos that I did not have a digital copy of, make them digital by taking photo on photo and color correcting just a little bit. It wasn't anything earth-shattering, but just enough to make me happier with those photos. And I'm also very happy with the To Market collection. I can see myself finishing another layout and getting those grocery store photos, the mini grocery store photos, scrapped. And it makes me so happy that decade-old photos are now in the books. Thank you so much for watching. If you were inspired or you enjoyed today's video, hit like, subscribe, and share, and be sure to shoot me a comment because it really keeps me creating on YouTube and sharing. Thank you so much again for watching, and happy scrapping. Have a great day, everyone. Bye-bye.